Recording in progress.
Compound interest formula is one of the formula that we use exponential function to solve them or to find them. And the word compounding refers to the interest that we earn not only on the original value that is invested, but on the accumulated value of the account. Means the money that is invested, the initial money, plus all the interest that we received. Let's have an example to understand what does that exactly mean. Assume that you invested $1,000 in an account and you are supposed to receive 10% interest at the end of each year. If that is a simple interest, you only receive the interest on the money that you have invested. That means you receive 10% of the $1,000 at the end of the first year. So first year, you receive $100. But you still have $1,000 in the account. At the end of the second year, you receive a 10% of that $1,000 again, which is another $100. At the third year, you receive 10% of that $1,000 again, so you receive $100, which means at the end of the third year, you have $1,000 plus $300 interest, which is $1,300. But if it's compounding interest, you're supposed to receive 10% interest for that $1,000. So at the end of the first year, you receive $100. That means the money on the account is $1,100 at the end of the first year. And then you receive the interest at the end of the second year for this much money, not only for that $1,000 that's invested, because you receive interest on the original value and all the interest you received the previous years. And the 10% of this money is 110. Then if we add 110 to this, we will have $1,200 at the end of the second year. Then we receive 10% of this money, this invested money, for the third year, which is 121 at the end of the third year. And if you add 121 to this, that means at the end of the third year, you will have $1,331. And you can see that if only compounding occurs once a year, you still have $31 more than the simple interest. But the compounding may be even more than it once a year. If it's compounding annually, it's just once a year. Then you receive that interest on the interest just once a year. But if it's compounding semi-annually, that means it happens twice a year. If it's quarterly, we have 4 quarters in a year, that means the compounding occurs 4 times a year. If it says compounding monthly, the compounding occurs monthly, that means you receive that interest 12 times in a year, which makes the interest more and more. So this is the formula that we use for compounding interest. And in this formula, P is the principal or the initial money, R is the interest rate, T is the time in the year, or N is the number of times that the compounding occurs in a year. Based on how the compounding occurs, it's compounding annually, semi-annually, quarterly, monthly, daily. We have different numbers for N. And A is the account value after that many years, after all those compounding. Let's look at an example. It says an initial investment of $100,000 at 12% interest is compounded monthly. What will the investment be worth in 30 years? When you see the word compounded monthly, that means you are supposed to use the compounding formula. Just write the formula first. And for finding the answer, you have to have this information. You need to know what is P, what is R, what is N, what is T. Go back to the question, read the question again. It says an initial investment is 100,000. Initial investment means the P. 12% interest. That means the interest rate is 12%. But again, we're not using interest. You're not using percentage for the interest. We have to change it to decimal, which is 0.12. Because 12%, if you want to change it to decimal, you have to move decimal points 2-digit back. But since there is no decimal point, that means the decimal point is at the end of the number. And if you move it 2-digit back, it gives you 0.12. N is the number of times that the compounding occurs. Since it's compounded monthly, we have 12 months in a year. T is the number of years. We want to see how much will be investment worth in 30 years. So that means that T is 30. And we want to find how much is in the account after 30 years. That means A. Okay, replace a number and find the A. E is 100,000. 1 plus R is 0.12. N is 12. N is 12. T is 30. First, we have to multiply 12 by 30, which is 360. Then we need to type this in a calculator and find the answer. So 0.12 divide by 12 plus 1, raise it to the power of 360 multiplied by 100,000. So the amount, the investment will worth 3594964. If I just keep it as a whole number, not a decimal, that means the amount of money in the account will be 3,594,964. So that $100,000 with 12% interest, which is a high interest, after 30 years, it worth more than $3 million. Let's look at another example. We have a 529 plan in a college saving. It says allows relative to invest money to pay for child's future college tuition. The account grows tax-free, okay? And Lily wants to set up a 529 account for her new granddaughter, and wants the account to grow to $40,000 over 18 years. She believes the account will earn 6% compounded semi-annually, which means twice a year. To the nearest dollar, how much will Lily need to invest in the account? Okay, when it says how much Lily need to invest, that means the initial value. We don't know the initial value. We don't know the P. We want to find the P. But she wants to have 40,000. That means after that many years, she wants to have 40,000 in the account. After how many years? 18 years, which is T. And the interest rate is 6%. So 6% in the decimal is 0.06. And she believes that it's compounded semi-annually. That means twice a year. So N is 2. So again, write the formula. And then replace the numbers that's given and find the missing one. We have the A, which is 40,000. We don't know the P. We know the R is 0.06, N is 2, and 2 times 18. First, we need to simplify the parenthesis. 2 times 18 is 36. We have to simplify the parenthesis first to see what do we get. 0.06 divided by 2 plus 1 raising to the power of 36 is 2.898. I prefer to not round too much right now because it changed the final answer. And let's keep the rounding for final answer. Okay, now we want to find a p. That means we want to isolate the p. So we have to get rid of these number in the parentheses. So I have to divide both sides by 2.898. And the p must be equal to, let's divide 40,000 by 2.898. So the answer is 13,802.6. That means if she invested $13,802 right now, after 18 years, she receives $40,000. But since it says to the nearest dollar, so we can round this up because it's 0.6. So we can round it up to 40. So that is the final answer. There is another formula also, which is called continuous interest formula. Continuous interest formula means that compounding occurs continuously, many times. Okay, that means the number of occurring, it's going to infinity. It's not the once a year or twice a year or 12 times a year. It's going all the way to infinity, getting bigger and bigger. N is getting bigger and bigger. And for this number, if n is approaching to infinity, in math, this number gives us a number e. E is a number. It's a popular number like pi, which is 2.718 something. And there is a key for that in every calculator. And we know, so this part of the formula, for compounding formula, which includes n, if n approaches to infinity, if n increases without a bound, it will be approximated by e. So what do? We are changing the formula to this form. So this is a formula when we have a continuous formula in compounding. So every time you see it says compounding continuously, you're using this formula. And for this formula, we need to know P, which is the principal or initial value. We need to know R, which is the interest rate again. But this time, the interest rate, remember that if it's a growth rate, increasing rate, you have to leave the rate positive. But if it's a decay rate or it shows that something is depreciating or just decreasing, you have to leave R negative as a negative number. T is again is the time, is the elapsed time, and A is the account value or the final amount of any problem that we are working on. Let's look at an example. It says a researcher at the Center for Disease Control and Prevention is studying the growth of the bacteria culture. She starts an experiment with 50 bacteria that grow continuously at the rate of 15% per hour. So the time elapsed here, it's just based on the hour. The initial bacteria is 50, so the P is 50. It says grows continuously at the rate of 15%. When it says grow, that means that's a positive R. And R is 15%, which is 0.15. How many bacteria will be present? How many bacteria will be present after 8 hours if T is 8? So since it's growing continuously, we are using the formula for the continuous interest. We don't know the A. We want to find the number of bacteria. We know P is 50. E is a number. Just keep the E. R is 0.05 times T, which is 8. Again, we need to find the power first. We need to multiply 0.05 by 8, which is 0.4. Now we just need to type this one in calculator and find the answer. E is a number in the calculator. You don't have to replace it by any number. You just have to use E key on your calculator. So we E to the power of 0.4 and then multiply it by 50. And you see that the answer is 74.59. That's the number of bacteria after 8 hours. Next example, it says a new car was sold 6 years ago for 30,000. If the car depreciates means decrease, the amount decrease continuously at the rate of 11% per year. What is the value of the car today? Okay. It's continuously. So we're going to use the continuous formula. And in this formula, we need to know A, P, R, and T. Some of them is given, and one of them must be found. The car was sold 6 years ago for 30,000. Okay, so that is the value of the car. It says depreciates. That means it's a decay problem because it's decreasing after each year. So we have to keep the R negative. So we have negative 11%. The rate is 11% per year, which is negative 11, which is negative 0.11 in decimal. And we want to find the value of the car today after 6 years. Okay, so let's find the A. We know P is 30,000. E, the power of negative 0.11, that's R times T. First multiply these two, negative 0.66. And then use calculator again to find E to the negative 0.66 multiplied by 30. So the value of the car right now is 15,500 and 505.5. Okay, the car that was sold 6 years ago for 30,000, now it only worth $15,500 because the car depreciates continuously every year, 11% per year. And the last example, it says use the compound interest or continuously compound interest formulas to answer each question. We have to decide if we are using compound interest or continuously compound interest. Sam deposited $3,500 into a high-yield savings account that earns 5.5% interest compounded monthly. Compounded monthly tells me that I have to use compound interest formula. That means this formula. And I need to find this information to use for the formula, R, N, and T. Let's go back and read the question again. Deposited 3,500, so which means that's the initial value. P, principal. Earns 5.5% interest. That's the interest rate. 5.5% which means 0.055. Compounded monthly means we have 12 months in a year, n is 12. And how much will Sam have? That means A is missing after 4 years. That means T is 4. So just replace these numbers into the formula. Find A. All you have to do is type it in the calculator. And the amount of money after 4 years would be $4,359 if you round it to a whole number. Next example, it says Peyton purchased a certificate of deposit to CD for $4,600 that earns 8.3% compounded continuously. Okay, this word tells me that I have to use continuous formula. And based on these formula, I need to have this information, A of T, P, R, and T. How much will Peyton's certificate of deposit will be worth? That means find the final amount after 5 years. That means T is 5. How much is the principal money? 4,600. What's the interest rate? That's 8.3%, which is 0.083. Okay, replace them into the formula and find the money, the amount of money after 5 years. Let's multiply these two numbers together. Which is 0.415. Then it's 6966. If you round it to the whole number, then the answer is 6,966.